Okay, I have a serious question. Why are Indonesian internet users so obsessed with gay memes? Like, seriously, if you spend enough time on Indonesian Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or even just watch Indonesian streamers, eventually you will encounter this weird genre of memes. Someone posts a completely normal-looking picture, then suddenly there is a random muscular guy. The caption makes absolutely no sense. Someone comments, "Jomak," and somehow everybody laughs. At first, I thought this was just an Indonesian thing that appeared out of nowhere. But the more I looked into it, the more complicated it became. Because apparently this meme culture has a history. And no, I don't think Indonesians suddenly woke up one morning in 2022 and decided, you know what? Gay memes are funny now. So today, I want to go down the rabbit hole and figure out, where did Indonesian Jomak memes actually come from? Why did they become so popular? And why does Indonesian internet culture keep turning the most random things into gay jokes? First, we need to understand the word jomak. Jomak is a slang version of homak. It's often used online as a coded or joking term related to homosexuality. But online, jomak doesn't necessarily mean that the person posting it is actually talking seriously about homosexuality. It became a category of absurd internet humor. And that's important because the joke is usually not simply, look, this person is gay. The joke is more like, why the hell is this completely unrelated picture suddenly being interpreted as gay? That absurdity is the point. And this is where Indonesian meme culture becomes interesting. To understand the timeline, we have to go back to around 2020. During the pandemic, Indonesian internet culture became even more dependent on social media. People were stuck at home. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook groups, and WhatsApp became places where people constantly exchanged jokes, screenshots, edited videos, and random images. And Indonesian meme culture already had a very strong tradition of shit-posting and absurd humor. You didn't need a clever joke. Sometimes the less sense it made, the funnier it became. One example was the development of regional memes. Certain cities or places could suddenly become associated with completely ridiculous stereotypes. The meme didn't have to make logical sense. The community simply repeated it until everyone understood the reference. This is important because Jomak culture didn't appear in a vacuum. It came from an internet culture that already loved inside jokes, absurdity, remixing, and deliberately stupid humor. Then we get to the early 2020s. This is where things get much more interesting. Around 2021, a global internet trend known as thug posting became popular. Thug posting used clips of muscular black men, exaggerated masculinity, strange dancing, provocative gestures, and completely absurd editing. One of the names that became particularly recognizable in this ecosystem was Dreamybull, an American adult content creator whose clips were repeatedly removed from their original context and transformed into memes. And this is where Indonesian internet culture basically said, okay, let's remix this. Indonesian users didn't simply copy the original memes, they localized them. They added Indonesian music, they created Indonesian captions, they gave people completely random Indonesian names. And eventually, these foreign clips became part of a uniquely Indonesian meme vocabulary. That process is called remix culture. You take something from somewhere else, remove its original context, add your own cultural references, and suddenly it becomes something completely different. And this is probably one of the biggest reasons why Jomak memes became so powerful in Indonesia. The original context disappears. Imagine someone who has never seen the original video. They don't care who the person is. They don't care where the clip came from. They just know, this is the funny guy from the meme. At that point, the person stops being a real person in the viewer's mind and becomes a meme character. And Indonesian internet culture is extremely good at doing this. Someone becomes a meme, then they get a nickname, then they get a fake backstory, then someone makes a WhatsApp sticker, then someone edits them into an Indonesian song, and suddenly you have an entire fictional universe. But here's where things get uncomfortable. Because some of these memes aren't only about sexuality. They're also connected to race and stereotypes. A 2025 Indonesian academic study specifically examined Jomak memes and found that many of them repeatedly portray muscular black men through hypermasculine and homoerotic imagery. The researchers argued that this can create new stereotypes about black people, even when the people sharing the memes think they're just joking. And honestly, this is something we probably don't talk about enough, because when you're inside the meme community, everything becomes ironic. You see a picture and think, bro, this is obviously a joke. But irony doesn't automatically erase the stereotypes inside the joke. You can have something that is funny to one community while still being uncomfortable or offensive to someone outside that community. That's basically the paradox of internet humor. And then there's another question. Why is this particularly popular among Indonesian young people? One possible answer is taboo humor. Indonesia is generally a socially conservative country. Sexuality, especially homosexuality, can be a sensitive subject. And taboo subjects often become attractive material for internet humor, precisely because they're uncomfortable. You know that feeling when someone says something you're absolutely not supposed to say? And everyone starts laughing because the situation is so inappropriate? Internet meme culture particularly weaponizes that feeling. A 2024 study involving more than 1,012 Indonesian students found an interesting distinction. Young people surveyed tended to have strongly negative attitudes toward same-sex relationships, but their attitudes toward homosexual content on social media were less consistently negative, with many saying they would not necessarily avoid such content. That doesn't mean Indonesian teenagers secretly support homosexuality. It means something more complicated is happening. People can reject something as a real-life social issue while simultaneously consuming it as an internet joke. Real life and meme culture operate by different rules. And this is also why streamers matter. If you've ever watched Indonesian streamers like Reza Auditori, you know that Indonesian streaming culture just about gaming. It's about community interaction. The chat becomes part of the entertainment. Someone sees something stupid, another person turns it into a joke, then someone clips it, then Instagram accounts repost it, then the joke becomes a new meme. Reza Auditori's streaming has grown massively, especially on Kick. But viewers would often donate and send in a video clip, and in the last few seconds of the clip, there would always be a gay person kissing someone. Or even worse, this eventually earned him the nickname Admin Jomak among his viewers. And that's basically what made him famous. And that's basically how meme culture survives. It's not one creator. It's thousands of people constantly remixing the references. By 2025 and 2026, Jomak memes had basically become self-aware. You don't even need to explain the joke anymore. Someone can just type one word, Jomak. And people who understand the culture immediately know what they're talking about. There are even academic papers now specifically analyzing Jomak memes. One 2026 study described Jomak as a controversial meme phenomenon involving homosexual jokes and recurring figures, and analyzes it through internet culture, social cognition, and visual communication. Think about how insane that is. Something that started as random internet shitposting has become an actual subject of academic research. That's the internet. But here's my conclusion. I don't think Indonesians are necessarily obsessed with homosexuality. I think Indonesians are obsessed with inside jokes. They're obsessed with absurdity. They're obsessed with taking something completely normal and destroying its original meaning. And homosexuality happens to be an extremely effective taboo for this type of humor. It's unexpected, it's uncomfortable, it's easy to recognize, and because it's controversial, it creates a stronger reaction. But there's another reason Jomak memes survive. Community. When you understand a really niche meme, you feel like you're part of a secret club. Someone posts an image that looks completely meaningless to outsiders, but you understand it. You know the reference, you know the character, you know the law, and suddenly you're part of the joke. That's what makes internet subcultures powerful. So if you're an Indonesian Gen Z watching this and thinking, bro, why are we like this? Honestly, I don't know. And I don't think there's one single answer. Jomak culture wasn't created by one person, it wasn't invented in one Facebook group, and it definitely didn't appear overnight. It's the result of years of Indonesian shitposting culture, global memes, TikTok, Instagram streaming communities, remix culture, taboo humor, and people constantly trying to make each other laugh. From the memes of the pandemic era, to thug posting, to Dreamy Bowl, to Indonesian remixes, to the completely ridiculous characters and law we have today, the culture just kept evolving. And that's probably the funniest part, because 5 years from now, nobody knows what the next version will look like. Maybe we'll look back at Jomak memes and think, why the hell did we find this funny? But knowing Indonesian internet culture, someone will probably turn that sentence into a meme too. And honestly, that's probably the most Indonesian thing imaginable.